So Christine and I will be talking about the stroke that happened to me. But before we do that, I want you guys to watch this quick video. It kind of explains some things.
Hello, in this health sketch we want to talk to you about stroke. It's a bit of an odd name, stroke. It certainly has nothing to do with tennis strokes, swimming strokes, or brush strokes. The word stroke comes from the idea of receiving a strike or blow, as that is how quickly strokes appear. All of a sudden, people are struck by this illness. Did you know that every year more than 15 million people worldwide have a stroke? Of these, 5 million die and another 5 million are left disabled. Whilst most strokes occur in people over the age of 65, they can occur in much younger people too. But what exactly is a stroke? The brain, like all parts of the body, needs oxygen, which it gets from the blood. A stroke happens when blood flow to the brain is cut off. When brain cells are starved of oxygen, they become damaged, and the symptoms that follow are called a stroke. As the brain controls the whole body, the symptoms of a stroke can be wide-ranging, depending on which parts of the brain are affected. If the stroke occurs here, it would cause a drooping face. Here, weakness in the arms or legs. Or here, difficulty speaking. Other symptoms can happen too, like changes to vision, loss of balance, confusion, and memory loss. The effects might be barely noticeable, but are more often severe and disabling. Sometimes these changes can be reversed if treatment is started early. That's why it is so important to act quickly if you suspect a stroke. Remember, you need to get help fast. F is for face. Is their face drooping on one side? Can they smile? A is for arms. Is there weakness in the arms? Can they lift them both up? S is for speech. Is their speech slurred? T is for time. If you spot any one of these signs, then it's time to call an ambulance. Once the ambulance arrives at the hospital, a doctor will assess you and arrange an urgent scan of the head, which shows where the brain is damaged and what type of stroke has happened. Strokes are put into two groups depending on the problem in the blood vessels supplying the brain. There can either be a blockage, called an ischemic stroke, or a bleed, called a hemorrhagic stroke. The majority of strokes are blockages. It's important to identify early on which sort of stroke has happened, as they each have very different treatments. Blockage strokes are commonly caused by the buildup of fatty material in blood vessels. This fatty buildup may lead to a clot, which blocks the blood supply, just like in a heart attack. This is why a stroke can be thought of as a brain attack. A clot may occur within the brain, or it can travel from another part of the body, commonly the blood vessels in the neck. Clots can also travel from the heart, which may happen when you have an irregular heartbeat called atrial fibrillation, or AF. If a blockage stroke is detected within the first few hours, a clot-busting medication is sometimes given to dissolve the clot. This is called thrombolysis. If thrombolysis can't be used, other medications such as aspirin will be given as treatment instead. Bleeding strokes happen when a blood vessel bursts suddenly, causing blood to leak in or around the brain. In these strokes, blood on the brain can lead to swelling, a serious problem which may require surgery in some cases. Sometimes, stroke symptoms completely disappear in less than 24 hours. This is called a mini-stroke, or TIA. Often, symptoms only last a few minutes, but just like with a full-blown stroke, you must go to hospital immediately if you suspect a TIA. This is because a TIA is a warning sign that you're at high risk of having a full stroke. Whether you have a TIA or a full stroke, daily medications are started and continued lifelong to help prevent further episodes. The effects of a stroke can be disabling, but given time, the brain can slowly adapt to recover some previously lost abilities. This is why stroke rehabilitation is so important. Rehab can be challenging, but many specialists are on hand to help alongside doctors and nurses. If your stroke causes difficulty swallowing, dietitians can recommend special diets or feeding tubes. If you have problems with communication, speech and language therapists can help. If it has become difficult to walk or perform daily tasks, physiotherapists and occupational therapists can offer exercises and home adaptations. Also, after a stroke, people often feel low or frustrated that they can't do the things they used to, and don't like being dependent on others. Counselors can help talk through these feelings, and many patient groups are available for further support. We've talked a lot about strokes, but what can we do to prevent them from happening? Even if you've already had a stroke in the past, There are many small steps we can all take to reduce our future risk of having a stroke, such as lowering high blood pressure, the number one cause of stroke, stopping smoking, lowering cholesterol, being more active, eating healthily, lowering alcohol intake to within recommended limits. If you have diabetes, keeping good control of blood sugar levels. In this health sketch, we've talked about what a stroke is, how to spot the key symptoms, and the need to act fast. We've also talked about treatments, rehab, and the steps we can take to prevent strokes. We hope this health sketch about stroke has been helpful for you and those around you. Health sketch, health for all to see.
Okay, go for it.
Is the slide up? The slide's not up. There you are. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. This is David. David and I used to joke about being on the reality show called Naked and Afraid. And if you're not familiar with the show, it's on the Discovery Channel, and they take a man and a woman who don't know each other, and they strand them together in a desolate location. And they have to survive. It's like a jungle or the bayou, rainforest. And they're stripped of everything. Not a stitch of clothing, not even any shoes. And they have to build their own shelter, find their own food. They have to survive for 21 days. And by the way, they actually have a background in survival. A lot of these contestants are athletes. They were a trainer in the military. One of them was a stuntman. Some of them are actually teachers in survival skills. So they have knowledge and experience. And they have to do this for 21 days. They can't quit or tap out. And so we joke about this because David and I don't even like camping. And just to give you an idea of what roughing it is to us, a few years ago when our youngest was about 10 years old, we checked into this hotel, and when she saw us parking our own car and bringing our own luggage in, she was like, "There's no valet parking? There's no bellboy?" And so we don't go to expensive places. It's just that we like being comfortable. We like room service. We like fresh towels. We like clean bed sheets. And so anyway, we would joke, yeah, we're going to go on that reality show, Naked and Afraid, except he can be naked and I will be afraid. So anyway, I am sorry that I made that joke because very early on Saturday morning, March 11th, we were awake. It was 3 in the morning. And for those of you who know us, being up at 3 is not out of the ordinary because we're night owls. So we're watching a movie and David gets what he thinks is a leg cramp. And those things go away, but after a few minutes it wasn't going away, and you're massaging his leg and flexing his foot and it's still not going away. And I had read about recognizing signs of stroke, and not this video, but I read about it, and mine was like, can the patient do the YMCA? So I was like, can you lift your arms? And he did. He was able to lift his arms, but his left arm was, he goes, well, he's lying down in bed, and he's like, well, it's heavy. And I didn't think that was enough, and I said, can you smile? And he's doing this. I was like, he's moving, he's talking to me. And then his leg was just really heavy. He couldn't move his leg still, and his arm, and I'm like thinking, okay, there's something wrong. I gotta get to the ER or get you to the hospital. He goes, no, not yet. And they say you shouldn't, but I go on my phone and I Google stroke, what is a stroke? And even though I kind of knew what a stroke was, I thought it would be obvious. I thought there would be slurred speech and the droop, like what they said, the face, the arms, the speech, and I couldn't see it. And then I thought, one of the things I learned from my reading right then and there was, if it is a stroke, you have a 3 to 4 hour window of getting them this medicine called TPA. It's tissue plasminogen activator. Basically, it's a clot buster. So you got to get that medicine in because the medicine could save his life, or it could greatly reduce the damage that a stroke, the permanent damage that a stroke could leave. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got this window, and so I'm still saying, let's go, we got to go. And he's like, no, no, no. And he says, maybe you should roll me over, thinking maybe the position will help. And he can't even help me. He can't even roll himself over. He's dead weight. He's twice my size and my weight. And I'm just like, pushing him, and he just can't move. But somehow we manage. I think he grabs onto the sheet or something. So I get him on his belly, and then I was like, oh, maybe your back is out. Maybe you pinched a nerve, or because he was working out the day before. So I was like, okay, get the massager. So getting the massager, he goes, okay, how about a hot water bottle? Try the hot water bottle, everything, and I'm still on my phone. And he's like, I'm massaging, doing the hot water bottle, I'm looking at my phone, and I'm thinking, what if it is a stroke? What if it isn't, and I'm making a big fuss over nothing? And so you're kind of in denial. He is okay, it is nothing, and you're praying that it is nothing. But if it is, I got to get him to the hospital. And then on top of that, I'm thinking, I got to call 911. How much does it cost to call 911? How much does it cost to get an ambulance? How much is this going to cost to go to the ER on a weekend? What's our deductible? And then I'm like, we've got the Game of Thrones concert we're going to, and we don't have time for a stroke. It's Saturday, and we're always at work on Sunday.
This was 2 weeks before Easter.
Yeah, so we're just like, oh my gosh, it's messing up the schedule, and just all these things going through my head. And so I do call a couple neighbors, I text them, and I wasn't really expecting them to respond because it was about 4 a.m. by this time, and I said, something's wrong with David. I'm going to need help because we have our bedrooms upstairs, and I'm going to need help getting him downstairs. And I'm looking over at David, and he doesn't look any better. He looks sleepy, but I'm sleepy. And then he asks for a pen and paper, and he tries to write. He's a lefty, by the way. I'm also a lefty. And he's trying to write something. I can't understand his writing, but normally I can't understand his writing anyway. So he's going like this. And then he says something, and it doesn't come out. So I was like, oh, that's scary. Then he starts doing this with his right hand, and I realize he's going ER. And take you to the ER. And for a man to say he has to go to the doctor, that's pretty serious. So I call 911, and I say, I think my husband's having a stroke. And by the way, if you're not sure, you should say that, because that will get their attention. They call ahead to the hospital. They get everything ready. When you say stroke, that's serious. And David's able to talk again, and I get everything ready. I have to wake our youngest. We do have 2 adult children. They're living in the city at the time, but our 15-year-old's at home. I have to wake her up. And David's like saying, open the gate, make sure the gate's open, make sure the door's unlocked, pack a bag. He's still giving directions, and we're still trying to be all organized and rational. And I had to wake Toby. I say, Toby, we got to go to the hospital. She's like, why? And then there's that fear and the tears, just awful. Something's wrong with Dad. We got to take him. And we do live off of San Ramon and San Marin. There's a firehouse right there. So they were there within minutes, 5 minutes probably. And paramedics come, and they start asking David questions, and he's answering them. Like, what's your name? What's your date of birth? What day is it? What happened? Answering questions, but he still can't move. And it takes like three big guys heaving and just trying to get him, because he was on his belly, to turn him over, to sit him up, because he just can't, he can't do anything. He's just like slumped over. They have to like, whoa, and they couldn't use a stretcher because we're on the 2nd floor and we have 2 flights with a sharp turn. They had to strap him into a special chair and carry him down. And so while they're doing that, I'm getting Toby ready and to follow them to the hospital. And when we get outside, I asked the paramedic, is it a stroke? And he said, I've never seen anything like this. I don't know, but we're going to take all the precautions. So get him to the ER, and then? Do you remember?
So I fell asleep during the ambulance ride, and I woke up at the ER, and then, so that's me in the ER, in my hospital gown, in
Can
a
you see
hospital
it?
bed.
Do we need light?
Can you guys see that okay? So the first thing you learn when you're in a hospital bed is how to roll over. So you learn to roll over onto your side, and the way you do that is you have a good side and a bad side. I kept arguing that I had two good sides, but they kept saying, okay, you have a good side and a bad side. And what you do is you take your good side, you reach over, you roll over onto your bad side. That way they can tie your gown, they can clean up, if you wet your bed, they can clean off the sheets. And so you're constantly, that's what you learn to do, is you reach over, grab with your right hand, pull yourself over. So after a while of doing that, my scapula, is that what it's called, Brian? My shoulder blades, they needed massaging because I was constantly pulling myself over. So in the middle of the night, almost every hour, I would be calling, thank you that Brian was there. He would come by, and when he was there, he would massage it. And then every night I had either my brother, my sister, or Christine was sleeping in a chair next to me. So almost every hour I would wake them up. I took my scratcher. This is a great thing to have. So
Awful.
you would
So
reach over and you go, psst, psst, psst,
So annoying.
and
It's
you
so
scratch-
annoying.
And you'd wake them up and you say, can you massage my back? So they'd come over to the other side, to my right side. I'd grab over to the other side and I'd pull myself over, and they would massage my shoulders. Now, Christine's got huge hands, and she's got huge forearms, so she could really get in there and really need these things. But after a while, the thing we learned is every time I would grab over, as I would grab over, my muscles would constrict or contract and would be really hard. And Christine eventually couldn't get into my muscles, and I had no relief. It was just like, what are you doing? Scratch that thing. So we had this little tool here that you put on your fingers and you'd be able to rub, and that helped a little bit. Every now and then, Christine would reach over and she'd tap me on the shoulder and says, okay, honey, you gotta let go. So I learned that I'd have to, in order for me to feel anything, I'd have to let go. I'd let go of that, and then she could get in. My muscles would relax a little bit. Then she could get in, and then I'd go, that's it. So the thing is that I learned is we sometimes hold on to things so tightly that we can't feel the relief that either God or someone else is trying to give us, because we hold on so tightly to things. And that's what I was doing. I would hold on to that bed rail, pull myself over, and just pull and hold on so tight that Christine would try and get in there, but my muscles were so hard that I couldn't even feel it. So the one thing I was learning and still learning is that I have to let go of things.
Yeah.
So I challenge you guys to kind of think about the things that you're holding on to, and you're gonna have to learn to let go and let some of the relief come in, whether it's from God or whether it's from other people that are around you. Yeah. There's relief out there, but you have to learn to let go. So that was one big lesson.
You did talk about what happened when you got to the hospital.
Oh, when I got to the hospital, so every hour they would come in and they'd ask me questions. They'd ask me my name, my date of birth, and what day it was. Now, I knew my name, I knew my date of birth, and then they had this board up there that had the date on it. So they thought I was being smart, but I would just look at the board and I'd say, David Reyes, 9/18/1965. And I go, March 16. I look at the board and say, today's March 16th. Thursday. Then they'd also come in and they'd give me these things to read. It'd say, read these, and so I'd read these. Mama, Tip Top, 50-50, thanks, Huckleberry, baseball player. Then they go to the next one, read these lines. You know how, down to earth, I got home from work. Near the table in the dining room, they heard him speak on the radio last night. When they showed me this picture, say, what do you see here? A glove, a key, cactus, a feather, chairs, a hammock, and 2 trees. Now they would do that every 15 minutes, and then this last picture, describe what you see. So I think, Christine, the first time I did this,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, actually, I should go backtrack, because after we got you to the ER, they did, he was surrounded by like 9 or 10 people. Actually, the emergency room was empty. There was not even anyone waiting to be seen. And he had, by the time Toby and I got there, he had already had a CT scan, which didn't show that he had a stroke yet, because they did a CT scan later and they found it. But they did, the neurologist couldn't get there on time, so they had him on FaceTime. And they had the neurologist, the camera on David, the phone on David, looking at his face, and the neurologist asking him questions and, having him move his, everything and try. At this point, David could only do his arm this way with his left. He could do this. He could still move, but there were things that I didn't recognize. The neurologist could see it, and he said, yeah, it's time to, you do have to give him that TPA. And thankfully, he got it in that window. And later on, they did determine it was a stroke. Well, they did say, yes, stroke. It was an ischemic stroke. So you saw in the video that that's from a clot that blocks it moves from somewhere in your body, and it blocks the blood. So when they determined that he had a stroke, they put him in the ICU. And for that first night, every hour, they would check in neurological testing, and that's why they asked him all these questions every hour. And I remember passing in and out of consciousness because I was so tired, but I could hear them, and I would hear the nurses come in and ask him the questions. And then after a while, they said, I think he's memorized it. Because even before they would flip to the page, he was already telling them what it was. And let me just say, he was a very nice guy throughout the whole thing, very neutral, but pretty annoying because if you know David, Make It Happen Reyes, he is the go-to guy for everything. And even in the hospital, he was still trying to figure things out, plan things, still trying to organize things, still trying to put things into order. I had to take his laptop and his phone away from him because he was still trying to plan Easter. And I had to text several friends, and I said, if David texts you for something, ignore it or check with me first, because he's going to ask for stuff. He was on the planning center trying to figure out who's singing and who's going to do the PowerPoint. So we actually were living our Naked and Afraid reality show because David was naked. He was stripped of not just his physical left side control, but control of who he was. And when our older kids came to see him, Dad looked different. He's talking and trying to still crack jokes to make everyone feel, comfortable. He didn't want us to worry, but they could see, and their eyes just started, tearing up because there's something wrong with Dad. And one of our friends, you could see the fear in his face, and he said, "You never see David sitting down, even." So there he was naked, and I was so freaking afraid because, to see someone like that is just, it was hard. So anyway, ICU for 2 nights and another 2 nights in critical care. And then 19 days in the rehab center in Vallejo. This is the Kaiser Facility Rehab Center in Vallejo. And they assigned us there. I didn't know that was the best place to go. It's just that they saw so much support from our family and friends. There were people visiting. He had family around the clock. And they said, we don't just take anybody. They were pointing to everyone that was there. This is what got you in. So I'm very, very grateful. All the people that came and massaged David, talked to him, visited, brought food. That got us into this rehab center, an excellent rehab center. Did you want to talk about anything with that? Or?
Yeah, so KFRC, Kaiser Foundation Rehabilitation Center in Terra Linda,
this is Vallejo.
In Vallejo, is world-renowned. It's a teaching hospital where people from all over the world come to learn how to do physical therapy. When I first got there, here's how I looked. I couldn't even get out of my wheelchair. So here she's trying to get me up and out.
Is it right? Yeah.
So one of the things you learn is that to put your weight on your feet and lean on your good side, so which was my right side. So I'm trying to lean on my right side, and at the same time you put your nose over toes, so it's all about balance and perspective where you're at. And then when you get to that point, you count, and then you lift, and you just go up. So, but this is how I was when I first got there. I couldn't even get out of the chair. And luckily she's one of the bigger physical therapists there. The other ones were about Christine's size. Actually, I was teasing Christine, so you could be a physical therapist because one, you're Asian and you're 5'2", which is the size of almost all of them there. You'll see some more pictures of them there. But here, she's trying to get me out of my wheelchair and just onto the mat, which is something like this. That's why we have this up here. And then here's Adam. He's trying to get me out of my chair. So there, he's having to lift me up. Now, if you guys are on Facebook, you would have seen a lot of these videos already. Here he's trying to get me to march. So raising my feet up so you can see my right foot works fine. And so there I go with my right foot. Yay. He says, okay, now try your left foot. I go, I am trying. He said, all right, let me help you. So here he is trying to help me lift my left foot. I couldn't even lift my left foot off the ground. So here he's trying to help me. So baby steps. So first we started with learning to roll over. So rolling over helped with changing your clothes and changing the bed sheets and getting your stuff on. Then the next thing you learned was to do the bridge. So, excuse me, Christine. So once you're in bed and you got into bed, you learned to do a bridge, which was lifting up your butt, basically. And that helps you with putting on your clothes. So you put on your pants, lift up your butt, put up your bridge. Then the next thing was learning to balance. So you get out of bed. So let's do an experiment. Why don't you guys stand up for a second? And we're going to learn to balance. So close your eyes. And if you have to, you can hold onto the chair in front of you. If not, just kind of stand up and you'll feel yourself kind of swaying either left or right or forward and backwards. Okay, so once you feel that, now I want you to feel your left foot and your left toes. Every time you feel your left toe kind of grab into the floor, sit down. So when you kind of move it and you feel your left foot kind of grab into the ground, sit down. Okay, because that means you just fell over. Because if you had a stroke, you couldn't feel that. You would have just fallen over. Okay, so that's how you learn your balance. You're kind of sitting there, and if you feel it, if you feel yourself moving to your left foot, that's it. So go ahead, and if you don't feel it, you can go ahead and sit down. So you learn to balance, you learn to stand, and then once you get that, then they start teaching you how to walk. So they'll move you slowly, left, right, left, right. You learn to walk with a walker first, and so you stand up, get into a walker position, and then start walking around. Eventually, when they think that you're strong enough, they'll take the walker away and give you a cane. You start walking with a cane. When you're good without the cane, then you just start walking without it. That way you learn your balance without having anything to hold you up. The other part of physical therapy was occupational therapy. This was in the occupational therapy room.
There's Joe.
There's Joe, and the guy holding my shoulder is Ned Espiritu. I don't know how they set these things up, but he's a worship leader. He's also a bass player. He became my occupational therapist. When he found out I played guitar, he said, dude, bring a guitar in. Because that's one of the best things for you is to bring a guitar, start playing and moving your left hand. So I brought it in, we would play. And then I started playing, and they were just kind of amazed at how well I could start moving my hands and start playing.
It was something that he did without even thinking, and his doctor was there, and there was another doctor, and they were just amazed because nobody had to, because before that he was trying to tell himself to move, but you put the guitar in his hand and just automatically he just did this, and it was like, that was a real big breakthrough. And then for him to actually even tap his foot.
So eventually I could play,
was huge,
and they
yeah.
said, okay, now when I strummed, my timing was better, but when I started picking, got to the fine motor skills, my timing started getting off. My left hand couldn't keep up with my right hand. So they had me, so they just strum, and they found out that when I sang with the song, my timing was a lot better than when I didn't sing. So I would try to sing, and everyone knows that I sing great. So Joe was there. Joe was singing for me, and I could keep up. Then the next step that he did was go ahead and tap your foot. So I put my foot down, and I would tap my foot, And they said, no, that's your right foot. That's normal. You should be able to do that. Do your left foot. So I put my left foot down. I was strumming, and then I started tapping my left foot. Everyone just kind of, their jaws all dropped. They called the doctor, and they go, look. So they saw me strumming and moving my left hand, changing chords, and they were all pointing and looking at my left foot. All of a sudden, my left foot. Before that, all I could do was I could wiggle my toes on my left foot. I couldn't even lift it up. But here, when I started strumming, they saw my foot, and they said I would start tapping. They're saying, you just made a connection. So that's kind of like a miracle, watching a miracle happen. Because normally, I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even move my toes. My toes would just be out there. But then when I started strumming, and I could actually pick my foot up and keep time with my left foot, they were all just saying, wow, that's a miracle. Even the doctors, their jaws would drop, and they said, okay, therapy for you is going to be playing the guitar. The problem is that I kept playing the guitar, and after about 15 minutes, because I had no balance, I would start doing this. And I was practically on the ground, and that's why in that picture he's kind of holding me up. He said, okay, when he starts leaning, you got to tell him to stop. Give him a 3-minute break.
He will play until he's down here, really.
And so
You
literally
have to hold him up,
in my wheelchair, I'd be almost down to the ground, but I'd still be going like this. And I was like, and then they told Christine, it's like, okay, when you see him, let him play, but when you see him start doing that, stop him and tell him to take a break. And, so Ned told me this one thing, and I was kind of like, why did this happen? And he goes, well, yesterday's the past, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a gift, and that's why they call it a present. So don't worry about what happened, don't worry about your future, live in the moment, live in today. Today is what matters. So that was his my Kung Fu Panda moment. So here, there's this kind of board, and there are these
Numbers and
pegs sticking out of it, and you take these wooden blocks, and then in each of these squares, they're numbered 1 through 22. So you would take a wooden block, you'd put it on 1, and then you go 2, 3, 4, and all this time you have to use your left hand. They're always telling you, use your left hand, so that way you're using, so my stroke happened on my right side of my brain, middle part of it, which affects the left side. So it's weird how the brain works. The right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. Now, because I was left-handed, they were saying left-handed people, speech seems to be on both sides, not just on the right side.
Yeah, capacity for speech is bilaterally, it's on both sides, yeah, and I'm a lefty too.
So, which is why they're saying my speech probably wasn't affected as
yeah.
bad. So there was a little bit of droopiness and a little bit of speech is a little slower and a little bit of slurring, but not as bad as some other people. So here they're having me pick up a block, go 1 through 22, and insert it. After a while, he was saying, okay, are you tired? They go, yes, kind of. He says, okay, take a break. So he took my hand and he put it on the table and just left it there. But then I was looking at the board, and he saw me, and he was looking at my eyes. He says, and my eyes were just like darting around the board. He had to literally cover my eyes and say, stop.
Because he was planning his next move.
Because I'm planning my next moves. And he says, when
Couldn't
they
stop.
say rest, we mean rest means do nothing, which I couldn't do. I said, do you know me? He's like, do nothing. I'm like, what? You crazy. So
That was very hard. That was, I think, the first Sunday that
that was my first aha moment.
Yeah.
It's like, do
Yeah.
nothing, okay.
Yeah, that was
So
very
he
hard.
put my hand on the table and he held it there, closed my eyes. He actually had to turn the board away so I wouldn't look at it.
Forced rest. That was
Forced rest.
That was when he started talking about that. I had to leave the room and I just started crying because he said, rest does mean, do nothing, but because you know how grace is a gift, it's given to you, but rest is something you have to enter into. It's not something that just comes to you. You have to purposely rest. Very hard for us to do. I was just crying because I'm like, I can't do it. I actually have this problem with the Mary and Martha story because I am so Martha, and I just can't sit there. And I don't understand how you can sit there and not do anything, because how is it going to get done? That's how I think. And even now I still struggle. And I think what I'm learning is you can do those things, but it's just your heart and your attitude that has to be like Mary. But I'm still working on it. Still working on it. We both are, I guess.
We both are, definitely.
Is there anything else you wanted?
Let's see. Okay, so we need to rest and stop being so busy. Live in the moment. Live in what's going on today. I was pretty selfish. I didn't think of anyone. I just thought of myself. Oh man, I have to do all this stuff, and I didn't even think about Christine or Toby or the other kids and what they're going through. That it's not just me that it happens to. It affects everybody that's around me. But that wasn't. I had no filters. I was doing things and saying things that. So you have to imagine too. You have a dietitian that tests your swallowing, because there are 13 muscles around your esophagus that help you move the food down from your throat down to your stomach. So also imagine that all the other muscles on your left side are kind of paralyzed too. So that means gas is building up and there's no way to control it. And so we had a joke, you see me do this, it's like get away, move back. Or even with my physical therapist, they're pushing my legs up and down, getting me to move my left leg, I'm like, gas, gas, gas.
It's really funny because the neurologist comes in, he's so serious, and David's just doing this.
And they're like, are you okay? What's wrong? And then Christine has to explain, that means he's going to...
Sorry, just be warned.
So, filters
sorry for
are
all
gone.
the people that visited.
So thank God there were flowers.
Didn't really help.
But,
anyway.
So that was one thing. And there were things I might have said. So Ron, Mel, if I had said some things to you guys, I'm sorry. I think I gave you all my passwords and passcodes. Hopefully you guys don't remember them.
Yeah.
So filters were gone. I was still empathetic, right?
Yeah, pretty much. He was still a nice guy, very neutral though. Just there's no expression really. Anything you asked him, he'd be like, sure. I'm so glad he's coming back. Thank God he's coming back. That was one of the things that was very frightening. And you can't tell also. It's something that nobody can predict how much will come back, either physically or just emotionally, mentally, all that. Are we done?
So going back to the small steps, so we learned, so balancing. There were points that they had me crawling on the ground because I had to learn to kind of coordinate my balances and get my strength back. Goes back to what Joe was talking about in Matthew 6. I'll let you guys read that, Matthew 6, where the practices of prayer, generosity, fasting, and community. You can't expect to just go jump in and do those things. You have to start small with all of them. So if you want to go to prayer, meditation, you can't expect to just sit there for a full hour straight and be able to meditate. You're going to have to do it small, make little changes in your life and say, okay, I'm going to start at 15 minutes, start at 10 minutes, and then build up. Just the way I have to learn how to walk again or learn how to crawl. I had to start with balance, just even standing up, moving my toes, balancing. And even today when I go to rehab, they still give me balancing exercises. And at home, we have all these things. So where is God in all of this? So that song that we did, I think they're over there, my notes.
Do you want the words?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that song we sang, it says, when everything falls apart, your arms hold me together. When everything falls apart, you're the only hope for this heart. When everything falls apart and my strength is gone, I find you mighty and strong. You keep holding on. So where's God? Well, God was in everybody that came to visit, every nurse, every physical therapist. So if God is love, whenever anyone showed love, that was God. All of you, all your well wishes, all your financial support, that was God. helping us. So I want to thank all of you guys for all of that.
Thank you.
Your financial support to the Quest has allowed the Quest to keep our salaries going. So we've been able to make our mortgage, our bills, and not have to worry about that. So thank all of you and all the people that were there.
Thank you.
Okay. So the last part is be inspiring. When you graduate from KFRC, they give you a green shirt and it says Thrive. And everybody signs it. So I want to read some of these things. Keep healing, friend. You're inspirational. Dr. McKinnon. David, thank you for always working so hard in self-care. Keep things going when you get home. Keep getting stronger. Best of luck on your road to recovery. We also got a lot of things about being, you're inspirational. Thank you. Here. David, has been so amazing to see you improve every day. Thank you for your hard work and for being so inspirational. Be well, be strong. Ned. So it wasn't like I woke up every morning and said, okay, I'm going to be inspirational today. I worked hard because Kayla's getting married in July, and I got to walk down the aisle. So I had to work as hard as I could. It wasn't like I woke up every day and I said, okay, I'm going to be inspirational today. Then now I think about it, says, why don't I do that? I should wake up and say, okay, what am I going to do today to help other people? How can I be inspirational? Or God, how can I help you in what your work? So I challenge all of you, that's what we should do, is wake up and say, how can I help you, God? How can I love? How can I be inspirational? Okay, thank you. So we're going to have communion today, and I want to serve all of you guys. So if you guys want to come up while the band is playing, we'll serve communion to you guys. Thank you. Kevin, you want to kill this?